It was a regular night in Yuba County, California. Five young men, all in their 20s, had spent the evening watching a basketball game, joking around and making plans for the weekend. They were ordinary guys, bright, friendly, and full of life. But what happened after that night would become one of the most baffling and disturbing mysteries in American history, a story that even decades later sends chills down the spine. The five friends were Bill, Jack, Ted, and brothers George and Gary. They didn't seem like the type to vanish into thin air, yet that's exactly what happened. Sometime after the game, the group decided to drive home. But instead of taking the main roads, they took a back route, a remote mountainous highway that twisted and turned through the forest. This road was known for being isolated, and on that night, fog hung thick in the air, making visibility almost impossible. For reasons that remain unclear, something went terribly wrong. Somewhere along that lonely road, their car broke down or got stuck. Some reports suggest it may have slid off the road, though nothing was ever confirmed. Whatever the reason, the five friends ended up stranded in the wilderness, miles away from help, with no cell service and temperatures dropping into freezing levels. What happened next is where the story turns from strange to terrifying. These men, perfectly healthy and familiar with the area, simply vanished. No signs of a struggle, no desperate calls for help, nothing, just gone. Authorities initially thought they might have wandered off and would be found eventually. But as days turned into weeks and then months, it became clear this was not a simple case of getting lost. The first clue came when a local resident reported seeing one of the men walking along a remote mountain road, looking disoriented and confused. But it was not until months later that the full, chilling story began to emerge. The bodies were found in different locations, spread out over miles of forest. Some were close to roads, others in the dense wilderness, far from any path. One of them had survived for some time after the disappearance, only to die of exposure. The details were horrifying. These weren't just people who got lost. They were alive, struggling against the elements, trying to find their way, and failing. The survivor, Ted, was found in a remote cabin, barely alive, with signs that he had been trying to survive for weeks. He was thin, weak, and unable to explain fully what had happened. He spoke in fragments, hinting at confusion, fear, and exhaustion. But his testimony raised more questions than it answered. How did they end up so far off the road? Why did they separate? And most importantly, how could all five of them vanish into the wilderness, leaving almost no evidence behind? Visuals show the dense forests, fog-covered roads, and the rugged terrain of Yuba County. The environment itself seems alive, almost predatory, as if it swallowed them whole. It's easy to imagine being trapped there, lost among the trees, the cold biting through every layer of clothing, and the night stretching endlessly. When the authorities investigated, they discovered more strange details. The car was found abandoned, keys still inside, doors unlocked. There were no footprints leading away from it, at least none that could be tracked easily. It was as if the men had simply vanished, guided by some invisible force, leaving behind only the wreckage of what should have been a routine trip home. One by one, the bodies were discovered under circumstances that made little sense. George and Gary, the brothers, were found miles apart, with no explanation for why they had separated. Bill's body was found near the car, but far enough to suggest he had wandered off intentionally. Jack's remains were discovered in a remote area, suggesting he might have succumbed to exposure days after the disappearance, and Ted, the survivor, gave just enough information to confuse investigators further, never providing a clear narrative of what truly happened. Experts and armchair detectives have tried to piece the events together for decades. Some suggest alcohol or drugs may have played a role, impairing their judgment. Others propose mental confusion or even a shared psychosis brought on by fear and cold. But no explanation fits all the facts. The Yuba County Five case defies logic in almost every way. People vanish, survive for weeks in freezing conditions, then die without leaving a clear trail. It's almost as if the forest itself conspired against them. The mystery deepens with the locations of the bodies. They were spread out in such a way that it's nearly impossible for them to have wandered separately without some form of guidance or confusion beyond normal comprehension. And yet the physical evidence shows no signs of foul play. No weapons, no struggle, just five young men trapped in an unforgiving wilderness. Visuals can shift to maps of Yuba County, highlighting the distances between where each body was found. Roads wind through the forest like veins, and the markers show how impossibly far the men had traveled in harsh conditions. The images alone create a feeling of unease. How could anyone survive there, let alone navigate without getting lost? Every year, new theories emerge. Some think the men were victims of a natural phenomenon, perhaps a sudden storm or a flash of disorientation caused by cold and fear. Others lean towards something darker, suggesting paranormal forces or some unseen presence that drove them off the road. There are stories among locals of strange sounds, eerie lights, and a sense of being watched in the very forest where the men disappeared. Could there have been something beyond the human eye that led them to their deaths? The case has been the subject of documentaries, articles, and endless speculation. True crime enthusiasts are drawn to it because it's a real-life horror story with no satisfying resolution. There are no villains to blame, no justice to serve, just 5 lives swallowed by mystery, leaving only questions and the haunting silence of the forest. It's impossible to discuss the Yuba County Five without imagining yourself in their place. You're driving down a remote mountain road, the fog thick around you. You take a wrong turn, your car falters, and suddenly you are alone in a wilderness that offers no comfort. The cold bites your skin, the shadows stretch long and menacing. Every step feels uncertain, every sound amplified, and yet you must keep moving. The fear is palpable, the unknown stretching endlessly before you. Some of the most haunting details come from the timeline itself. The men were last seen alive after the basketball game. Within hours, they were in the forest. Within weeks, they were gone. Months later, fragments of their final struggle emerged, clues too cryptic to piece together fully. How they tried to survive, how they interacted, whether they argued or helped each other. Those details remain lost to time, leaving only fragments of fear and confusion behind. Visuals of abandoned cabins, foggy mountain paths, and frozen creeks help convey the horror of isolation. Every corner of the forest seems to hold secrets, whispers of a story that no one can finish. The Yuba County Five are not just missing persons, they are symbols of human vulnerability, of how quickly ordinary life can turn into an unimaginable nightmare. Even today, decades later, visitors to Yuba County feel the weight of the mystery. Locals sometimes speak of a strange chill in the air, of a sense that the forest remembers, that the land itself has absorbed the fear of those lost men. Tourists walk the paths unaware of the tragedy, but those who know can feel a subtle unease, an instinctive caution, as if the forest still watches. The story of the Yuba County Five is more than a missing persons case. It is a lesson in the unpredictability of life, the fragility of human endurance, and the deep, incomprehensible mysteries that nature can hold. It reminds us that even familiar places, roads we drive every day, can hide terror and uncertainty. That night, a basketball game ended. 5 friends set out for home, and the world changed for them in ways we may never understand. If there is one thing the Yuba County Five teaches, it is this. Sometimes the most terrifying horror is the kind that makes no sense at all. It doesn't have a villain, a ghost, or a clear explanation. It just exists in the empty spaces between our understanding, in the cold, lonely forest where men vanished and the answers never came. So the next time you drive down a quiet road or wander through a dense forest, remember the story of Bill, Jack, Ted, George, and Gary. Ordinary men, ordinary lives, taken not by a human hand, but by circumstances so strange and chilling that they defy logic. And maybe, just maybe, look around you a little more carefully, because sometimes horror doesn't announce itself. It waits silently in the mist, in the shadows, in the places we least expect it. If you want to dive deeper into mysteries like this, stories that will haunt your thoughts long after the video ends, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and share it with anyone who loves a good true horror story. And leave a comment. What do you think really happened to the Yuba County Five? Your theory might just be the next piece of the puzzle.